This is going to be a fun one tonight.
He's looking at me like,
I'm ready.
dude, Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast. How is everybody getting on with homeschooling? Now, myself and Rich have both got young children, so we're looking today at what have we learnt from homeschooling. We are joined in our podcast by a lady who has been teaching for 12 years, and she's had the absolute fortune for 30 years to actually be my sister as well. What have we been looking at home? What have we been learning? What have we been thinking about? Is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Have our best efforts been best placed? And we've got the man himself, Richie Moon, here with us. Richie, how are we doing, brother?
Pete, I'm absolutely bloody amazing today.
So, Lisa, welcome to the Firefighters Podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, and her name is Lisa Williams, by the way. We should probably drop that in there somewhere.
Feel very welcomed.
Wonderful. Now, you've been teaching, as we said, for 12 years. You had a sort of baptism of fire after you came out of all of your teaching degree. You started down in Birmingham. You've now moved to a different area, near the area of Loughborough, and you've taught different dynamics. You've taught year one all the way up to year 6. You've been doing a lot of support for the children. You're still working as a teacher. How have you found stopping school and starting working from home, first and foremost?
Gosh, big question. Well, first of all, school hasn't stopped. I think that's a big thing, not against you, but against the general public eye.
It's almost relocated for the children.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah, but not all. And you're valid to say that because schools have approached this whole thing so differently, and I think that's a huge thing to take from it. We're still working an awful lot and have been doing the entire time. Majority of schools have still been open for a minority of children.
I know for us as emergency services staff, because you said hasn't stopped completely, because our children, we've certainly been offered support, and I know your partner works in the ambulance service as well, and the police service, so there has been some children continuing. But when you said they've been trying to adapt to it, it's not just new for the schools, it's been new for everybody. Not our generation, previous generations, no one has had to deal with something like this before, so there is no rule book. So every school, every child, every parent has had their own adaptation process to it. So what steps have you guys sort of taken to keep the learning continued, I suppose?
Well, I mean, in pretty much, it was a bit of a funny one for me because as we were going towards lockdown, I've got 2 small children, and my little boy, we were out at the zoo for the day, and my little boy came down with a fever. On exactly the same day that Boris announced that if anybody had those symptoms, we had to self-isolate as a family for 14 days.
Alarm bells.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was, oh my goodness me. And at the same point, we were, discussing closure at school, and it was just a very, very incredibly stressful time for me, for us as a family, for everybody, obviously, in the world. But
you've got so many things colliding as well, because a lot of people forget that some teachers, or a lot of teachers, have children themselves.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, my little boy was fine. I don't actually think he had it at that point anyway, but we didn't know.
Nobody was sure, and you did self-isolate.
Yeah, we went straight
your whole
into
family.
Yeah, we went straight into isolation that evening. Called school. My husband called the ambulance service. Went into lockdown, and meanwhile, my class is then having to be taught by a supply teacher through what is a national pandemic. Very frightening, and then the school's going to close, and within the space of 10 days, phenomenally, we changed everything we did to online.
It stopped very quickly, and it came to a halt very fast, didn't it?
That Friday, I went into isolation that Monday. By that Wednesday, there was a staff meeting all about it that I kind of tapped into virtually. Yeah. There was another member of staff as well, like me, who had a young child who'd also gone down with fever. So there was 2 of us kind of in the same boat. And so we tapped into that, and then thankfully I was fine. So we were learning and doing stuff at home. And then by that Monday, the schools had closed and the online platform had begun. And
how's that online platform gone for you? Do you think, as a teacher, is your workload increased now, do you think? Because it's a different way of teaching, isn't it? Do you think there's a bit more pressure on the teachers now?
I mean, it's nothing like I've ever experienced before. It's been CPD on the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
It's IT skills as well, because some people aren't familiar with IT.
Goodness. I mean, we have an excellent, one of the assistant heads at our school, he's excellent at ICT, and he'd actually recorded himself on the computer, kind of doing it on a desktop.
Step by step.
And there's 15 of them. So even now I could be like, and I don't have to bother him. I could just watch it, and it's that's very useful. But I mean, we're a 2 form entry school, so there's 2 classes per year, and so at the beginning we were sharing that, and putting for our year group maths and English and all that sort of stuff on. And I think if once you got used to it, if you took away all the other areas of your life, yes, of course, the time that you're dedicating to that is less than you have. Yeah. And you're physically at school, but you're also juggling your children at home who don't
your
go
normal
to school.
home life, aren't you, as well?
You know, my children weren't at nursery. I've got 2 tiny children below 4 years old. They weren't at nursery, so they're, physically very demanding, and they need me all the time.
Absolutely.
I can't just be doing stuff. My husband's on shifts, obviously, and, everybody has very different challenges, and this homeschooling is a very huge stress for parents, understandably so. And also on top of the online learning, we have been calling parents. So we called we were doing every week, and then it just got it was just quite unmanageable, really.
And what's the reason for ringing parents then? Is that just more reassurance, or just to check up on the kids? Or?
So to check in they're okay. Yeah. So some children receive more regular phone calls. So now we're down to 2 bi-weekly phone calls for parents.
Yep.
Doing the actual phone calls is absolutely lovely. It's the best part of my job.
Yeah. Imagine all the parents appreciate that, don't
they?
You see, that's very personal though, because I've not had that.
Very personal.
Me or my wife, for our children, we haven't had that. And I wanted to ask you, when you were just saying then, now a lot of teachers, I feel, have very different ranges of abilities, obviously because we're all unique, but some have the ability to change gears when they're teaching with different children, obviously depending on even within one class, you could walk around the class, and I'm sure it's exactly what you do. You'll arrive under the child, you know them very well, and you change gears depending on what it is. How has it been going from the ability to change gears with everybody in the class to trying to, as best you can, create a format where everybody can tap into the same thing? Because that's what makes a great teacher, and obviously brother and sister, I know that's what you're most passionate about. We've discussed your ability with that, and you've done it with our daughter and our boys as well, who have all got different learning abilities, but now you haven't been able to do that. So
you have to provide a best fit situation, and then you hope that via these phone calls you're able to pick up those children who perhaps are finding it more difficult to access or need a bit of extra support or whatever. And the unfortunate, the positive of it is 2/3 of our children are tapping into it every day, and it is going very, very well. The best of a very bad and scary situation that we're in at the moment, and that's going really well. And I think as a school we've really succeeded in that. We've made it personable. We do our daily videos, and this whole staff have done an excellent job. But there are 1/3 of children, a third, it's a lot of people who aren't, for various different reasons. Sometimes there's 5 children in the home, and there's a mum and dad who's still working full time. That's incredibly stressful and incredibly difficult. And they might all be from like 5 years old to 15. Some of them haven't taken their GCSEs. That's a huge environment to try and learn in, and that's completely understandable.
But it's not just that for me, and it's not a nice subject to talk about, but because I've been listening to some of the Samaritan stuff and some of the child helpline statistics. Yeah. For some children, and I imagine they live within that 1/3 that we refer to there, look at school as an escape from an environment, not necessarily yours, we're not talking about any specific children, but from my experience, I'm aware of children, and we see them in the fire service when we visit people's properties, who school is an escape for them. And for those children, not only has it been, I've not been accessing my learning, I've lost my place of safety a little bit. What has been put in place for those people, not necessarily by the school, but what's your thoughts and concerns on that? Because children do look at school as a place of safety, some of them.
Yeah, so no, you're absolutely bang on. So a primary school teacher's role, first and foremost, is to develop a child as a human being, and the academia comes on top of that. Always. And I think that's sometimes, not always, but I think sometimes lost in the public eye of what teachers do, and the whole the clock off 3:30.
It's so unique. You've always said to me it's a vocation, it's not a job.
It's your life. It's your life. Absolutely your life. And you wake up in the middle of the night and you think about those children as much as you think about your own. You do. And you spend more time with those children than you do your own. And it's a very interesting situation, and you care about them very deeply as people, as human beings, and obviously being online makes that very difficult and very challenging to do.
You're changing the relationship in effect, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're trying. I mean, we, again, as a school, we've done a brilliant job of this with the phone calls. We have a wellbeing team at our school. Do
you manage to get on the phone to the children as well, or is it just the parents?
We try. So the calls actually have greatened in length during the lockdown period, and in a very nice way.
Yeah, and I imagine some will want to talk more, some want to talk less.
Yeah, and we've got actually the relationship with parents now is fantastic. They pick up, oh, hey, how are you? Chat. And,
which I'd imagine when we go back to school, that's going to help massively.
Oh, it'll help everything.
Because how many parents just drop the kids off, pick them up, probably say hello. But now you've probably got that relationship now where you can engage them a little bit more and maybe get a bit more,
absolutely.
Bit more out of them.
Probably a lot of them only talk to the teacher on parents' evening, I imagine.
To be honest, a lot of them... Not really, because mine are year 4, so they still get collected by their parents.
Yeah, no, but I mean, from my experience, some teachers only meet or talk to their teacher on parents' evening once or twice a year. So having this, they've perhaps never, because back when we were kids, if a teacher's ringing home, it ain't good news.
Not good.
It's not good. You know full well, our mum and dad have had a few phone calls from me, and
they're more you, Pete. I'd imagine
they were never. I'm just on an update how Pete's getting on. It was. I'd like to discuss Peter and what happened this afternoon. Okay, he's not told us about anything. But I imagine some of them, for other teachers, may have never spoken, but I know your situation is very unique and you've always had a strong connection with a lot of parents.
Yeah, I mean, our school, again, I know I keep talking about school. There's a reason I've been there for 10 years. It's a fantastic school because they put the children first and we care very deeply about that. We have a team dedicated just to that, to supporting our children and our families. And they've played a vital role in this period, in making sure that those children are checked up on every single week. Sometimes a couple of times a week on the phone. We try to encourage those children that we are more concerned about, or that the parents are concerned about, to be part of that group that are in during the entire lockdown. But you can't force children to be in. So
So we're talking about, obviously, homeschooling. Now, that very term, because when I speak to different parents, the perception of homeschooling is very different for lots of different people. And I'm very lucky in a respect that, obviously, I've been talking to you about things I can do with my daughter and things to do with the boys. But for some people, they are trying to, as I've heard from them, I don't know what your thoughts are, they're trying to fill 9 to 3. They're trying. I need to do 6 hours.
Yeah, but don't forget, this is what I think a lot of parents get wrong here now as well. So they're going to school 9 to 3. That's a teacher who's got maybe 20 in a class, 30 in a class,
30,
maybe. So your parents that are trying to fill 9 till 3,
with one
they've
child.
actually got 1-to-1.
Oh yeah.
So potentially they could do a 9 till 3 school day in maybe 2-3 hours, maybe, if done correctly.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's what we kind of average down.
Quantity, not quality. Yeah. It's a quality, not quantity, isn't it?
But in
and
the
school's
classroom,
a big socialising thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and also in the classroom, don't forget, you've got, you're coming in and, right, guys, take off your coats, let's all get sorted, and there's 30 of them. And, what happened to your break time, sweetie pie? Oh, no worries, Oh, hang on, it's somebody's birthday, let's think about your birthday. All really vital parts of the day and make us feel
that's life skills,
feel
isn't
as
it?
a class.
All that is,
and
that's the best bit about school.
Guys, we need to make sure we're packed away. Can somebody be washing the paints, please? All of that stuff. And even just, right, we're all going to get on with this activity. It will be differentiated to at least 3 different levels. Yeah. There will be children that it will take an awful long time to do because they need X amount of help. There will be some children who do it very quickly, but maybe have got it all wrong. Yeah. There'll be some children who just can't understand the way you've explained it, so need to, come on, sweetheart, let's get the blocks out now. Yeah. And all of them will reach a really great position by the end of the lesson, but it takes a lot of skills to do that.
It's been a different journey for every student, hasn't it?
Yeah, and if you're one-to-one with a child, well, you can get to the root of that straight away, and they can succeed straight away. So actually that learning will go very quickly. And I think that's one element of being at home, but also it's not homeschooling at all. And people have called it that. This, we train to be teachers. We have CPD every single week. I've had CPD every single week.
And you train for years to do it. It's not a 3-month training to be a teacher.
For 4 years.
For 4 years,
And still, I'm not an expert.
No.
It's like anything, you're learning every single day, aren't you?
Because also the factors always change. Every child is unique. The situation changes. The curriculum might be adapted every year.
Absolutely.
It's never, it's a constantly evolving with so many factors.
What advice can you give to the parents at home that may be listening to this that are getting stressed out because they can't get their head around, helping the children, doing this, and they've got tasks? What advice can you give the parents listening on how to home educate their children?
Do what you can when you can.
Yeah.
Check your child's okay. And do what you can when you can. Keep up reading. Read to them every single day. You should be doing that, anyway. Or them read to you. Reading's so important and unlocks everything. Yeah. Doesn't matter how it's happening, but something together, some reading time, and keep maths and literacy ticking along. And if you can do some fun stuff like going for a walk together and picking out some flowers or doing something fun.
I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Just keep it fun.
It's got to be
just keep it fun. They'll stay engaged, won't
they?
And
then wanting to, they're not going to learn. Some children do, but very few. They're not going to learn like they do in the classroom.
No, no disrespect to anybody who might be listening, because I've got some friends who I've watched trying to school their children.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend that makes them put school uniform on.
Really?
A friend of mine gets his kids to put school uniform on. So he says, "Oh no, it helps them change gears mentally." I'm like, "All right."
It might. No, but again, it might.
Maybe.
Know?
But that very same parent, and it doesn't matter who it is, you'll know who he is. Yeah. But that he uses it as a technique, and I'm going to ask you here because you said read to your children and help them with certain things. Illiteracy and some adults who may have not benefited from school as much as other people are petrified of, well, let's just do some maths together. And the parent has that visceral recoil where they're like, I'm rubbish at maths, or I can't read very well. My child is looking me in the eye, I don't want to lose face for my child. So they just say, oh, we're not going to do that today, or we're just going to this. But as you rightly said there, it's not for them. The resources are all there. And also, we'll touch on adult education for a minute, because there's lots of resources. I know you've done some sport with parents before where there's basic level maths and English that the parents can partake in to then help the children. Because we forget, resources at school, there's lots of very qualified people and lots of physical resources.
And things have changed significantly even since
I
was at school.
Significantly, exactly. I've had it, where I absolutely love maths, and Lily will bring out something random, and I almost have to go back mentally to go, what are they trying to do? Oh, they're trying to do that. And then I've had the fault of trying to teach her my way, and I'm like, that's not going to help her. I just need to relearn what she's trying to do because I know how long division works, but she's got a different interpretation of it. So it's like trying to relearn theirs. And that can be petrifying for some people that perhaps don't feel very confident in their own knowledge, ability and intellect.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frightening for some parents. And that's where the do what you can when you can thing is.
Yeah.
But also where, again, it touches back on the fact that you having that relationship with your child's school is so crucial, because if you have that relationship, you would hope that through some way or platform that you'd be able to vocate that and say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this and that's just too much. What do you think? And they'll say, don't worry about it, just practice your timetables. Great, cool.
Yes.
Done. Just do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes a day. It's better than nothing.
I'd imagine throughout the UK,
it all adds up.
It's encouraged.
There's a bit of a pun there.
It's encouraged the parents to reach out to the teachers, isn't it, to ask for help?
Yeah. And that, and that's not always easy. And I think, we use the phrase, but it's not homeschooling. I mean, if it was that easy, we'd just do that and have a full-time job, wouldn't we? But
I remember
it's not easy.
Going back to some of our friends who try and teach their children spell.
Yeah.
So dog, do it, whatever they're trying to do. But anyway, the kid repeats it back. And I can see the parent, this is my friend, I'm not going to say who it is, getting frustrated because the child's getting it wrong. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time. And I can imagine the parents getting more stressed out than the children. And it's finding that balance,
I think
isn't it?
as well, they don't have any comparison. So then, I have some parents, not so much now, but at the beginning, very concerned about kind of, are they doing what they should be? And, all these lovely things. And it doesn't matter. You are keeping it ticking along, and that's fantastic. You're living in a national pandemic. Nobody has ever experienced this before. Nobody knows what to do.
No one knows the answer. There's nothing we can do.
Have you got through today? Is everyone okay and happy and healthy in your home?
Yeah.
Well done you. What? And you've done some learning. Well done.
Magic.
Like, honestly, it should be on top of it all. Are you okay? Are you managing? Or are you about to crack? And if you're about to crack, don't do any learning today.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Now, going back to the pandemic, statistically, do you think this is going to affect grades? Long term.
Yeah, because there might be people saying, it's all well and good, Jeff, Lisa, whoever, saying, just try and keep it ticking along. But my child just finished college. They were in their last week of year 6. This is a really crucial time. Don't tell me not to worry about it. I'm very, very worried.
No, and it's not. I never say don't worry. I always say, gosh, and in my phone calls, this is what we've planned, and we always plan all these really exciting things. But also, don't pressure yourself and think you have to do everything on there. It's our job to set you stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's not right and your child's upset or you're upset, then that's not the right environment to be doing things. And actually, when we come out of this, it's not just your child that's going to have missed 6 months of schooling. That's what it will be by September.
6 months,
pretty much, with some holidays.
Yeah,
it's almost 6 months.
Yeah.
It's not just your child; it's every child.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that's really it's awful that they've missed that much.
Yeah.
And the gap that we already have in education is going to be vast, very vast, because even missing that 6 months of school and perhaps doing the homeschooling, there's some children that will have literally done nothing at all to do with school.
Yeah.
And some will be able to just jump back on it. There's different characters. Some will really struggle. It depends how we all come out of it. I think it is going to be a very different time.
I think when the children come back, I think they're going to be full of energy.
Yeah.
And that's going to go one or two ways, isn't it? So it'll cause lots of disruption within the class, or they're just going to fly through it.
Kids are generally incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
We as adults are not. And it's our non-resilience, if that's such a word.
No, absolutely.
That makes them feel anxious generally most of the time. But actually, we've welcomed back some children as of Monday to our school widely. So we have been open to 10 children the whole way through. And it's gone brilliantly. They've been great. Bounced through the door, had a lovely time.
Because I love what you said there. They do, children mirror off how you feel. It's same as when you have them. Obviously, you've got very young children now. If your kid falls over and you run up to them and go, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," they immediately look at you and go, "Something must be wrong." Something must be wrong because you're reacting badly. I should feel this is a big moment, and that's what causes them. Whereas you see the difference in parenting approach. When somebody says, "Oh, we jump off, we go. Let's crack on. Don't worry about it. This, that, and the other," even if they've got a little scuff on their knee. And I think the mirroring that people do, and you're right, because even 30s, 40s, 50s, people still struggle, even more so now, and I want to get on to mental health, with anxiety and stress and fear, and they perpetuate that. It has that compound effect on the child. Now, I think mental health for children, when we were at school, I don't remember anything being mentioned about it. Mental health went as far as being bullied.
It's quite new. It's only just come into this. I'm a PSHE leader at my school, which is personal, social and health education. And the curriculum has just been redone starting this September, and it's only just been added to the curriculum.
Really?
Even though we've been talking about it for quite some time, but now it's becoming part of a thing that we must be teaching.
Is that for just one school in particular, or is that the all schools?
No, that's everybody. I mean, how you choose to do it is up to you. You can just touch on it a tiny bit. As a school, as I've mentioned, we're very pastoral, so we've been doing this for a long time anyway.
Okay.
And we have a wellbeing team, which is rare.
How does that work? Just go on that for a minute, because there's a national curriculum, isn't there? Because I don't know how this works, and I'm
there's
sure
a
lots of people.
Statutory national curriculum.
So there's lessons you have to do, but then because schools break into, there's academies, and then there's local governments.
Yeah.
How does it work? How does the information make it from government to you as to what you must do and what?
So there are I don't know the exact nitty-gritty, but basically as an academy you are allowed to make certain choices. There's a statutory curriculum where they provide knowledge-based information. What we teach in school is skills-based, so we hope that they will be able to apply those skills to different knowledge, basically, is the idea, so that you have skills for life rather than you just leave school knowing about the Romans and you don't have a clue how to find out anything else.
Which is reassuring.
Which is what we used to do.
Yeah.
But now it's changed, which is good.
Yeah.
But if we choose, so certain things we have to, whereas some other things we can choose whether we want to or not.
Okay.
And as long as we can prove why we've made that decision and that we've got adequate things and say, we're not going to teach that, but we are doing this, this and this. Fine.
So I remember the core have to's were always math, science, English.
That's all. Yeah, that's.
Is PE one? Because I know some schools don't do it, or they've gotten rid.
Really?
Yeah. So
yes, we spoke about this today. That some schools have gotten rid of their PE teacher, and it's like a local.
I thought
you have to.
No, that's
PE
just
teacher.
the coach. That would just be because I bet that's just funding wise, because funding in primary schools is cut.
You got to do. Surely, you got to do so much physical activity in school. Surely.
Yeah. So you should be.
The teacher can take that on,
having to. Yeah. So we teach PE normally as a teacher.
Yeah.
We have a coach as well that supplements that, and have school clubs and stuff like that. But we are supposed to teach 2 hours of PE a week.
Supposed to teach, or you have to teach?
I don't quote me on it, but I think 1 hour you definitely have to.
And I think it's just 1 hour is the only mandatory.
I think it's recommended 2. But obviously you also have lunchtime and blah and blah, and that kind of adds up. And lunchtime's an hour every day. Yeah. Not that it's PE, but it's physical time for children.
Play and just play, isn't it? Structured play. Because I think sport, the difference than running around the playground, which I think the social side is enormous.
Yeah.
We've spoken about in sport before, how they learn leadership skills and how they learn hierarchy and how they learn a healthy competitive edge in certain things.
Discipline, sport just gives you a massive... It's that winning mentality as well. I mean, I know a lot of people say winning isn't everything and it's taking part that counts. I'm a massive one in regards to you got to teach a child to win, because you're not going to get nowhere if you're not trying to succeed.
You have to have goals as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to be able to be a well-rounded person, like I've touched on lots, to be able to cope with the fact that you may not always achieve those goals, or maybe not ever achieve those goals. But you still need to have the goals. And you need to believe that you could get there, so that you can believe you can do lots of other things. Otherwise, you're just going to be plateauing.
But learning how to deal with when you don't, because you said there about if you don't reach that goals. Because obviously when we were kids, we were very, very different. But we talk about that competitive side. I was terrible at losing. If I hadn't have had that...
I mean, are you shocked by that? Right?
In fact, actually, while we're on this subject,
what
was Pete like as a kid? There's a lot of people listening that will really be intrigued.
Lost. Fun. Oh, bless her.
We had a great childhood. I know we're not talking about that right now, but we did. We had a lovely childhood.
We're very lucky in many ways.
Very lucky. Got great parents.
Yeah.
Shout out to mum and dad there.
There is.
Fist bumping over the table here as well.
No, we were. We had a lot.
We were encouraged to be competitive.
We were very lucky. We were encouraged to do what we wanted to do, and we had wonderful parents that believed in us and wanted us to do that, and would drive here, there, and everywhere, and take you to play roller hockey,
ice hockey,
in wherever you went to. I can't remember where it was.
Dad always plays. Loads of places. Derby, Sheffield. We went to Canada and competed a few times.
Yeah,
but even you with your dancing when you were competing.
Yeah, like my dancing, and not so much competing, but like it was like 3 times a week, and
then the shows
and
stuff
shows,
like that.
and like there were big commitment things, whether money or time, and we were very fortunate that we had people to be able to provide us with that, and I think that's having your parents behind you. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's massive.
Gosh, behind it, I think actually I listened to this in your podcast. I think this is why I have it in my head, from the lady firefighter.
Yes.
You have been listening to our podcast.
I listened to it the other day. Yeah.
She's not one of those that goes, yeah.
No, I actually
What's
listened
it called
to it
again?
because something one of you said,
Hobbs.
or maybe she said was, behind every great person are people that believe in them, and they're the actual reason for their success. She said something like that, or you said it, yeah. And she was talking about her parents, and that's exactly. I mean, okay,
No.
I'm no Darcy Bussell now, unfortunately, but I am in a place where I'm very happy, and I always I think so. I think, do you know what, I'm going to do that, and I'm never a half 50% kind of girl. I'm like,
but you'll see that in children, what you've just said there, because there's so many children that could achieve so many incredible things. You know, we use language as an example. One of the language speakers, bilingual, multilingual, said to me, a child will learn as many languages as you're willing to teach them, as you've got time to teach them. They have an enormous capacity. But as you've rightly said there, and we mentioned it in obviously a previous podcast, as you say, it's that support structure behind them. It's not very often that the child lacks the capacity or desire. Obviously, some have learning difficulties that will need a different technique and a different style to help them achieve it. But that support structure is invisible to most people, but plays such an enormous role. Even the small things, like you said, it's not about having a formal lesson with a child. It's about those 5 minutes of reading before bed. It's about that sitting at the dinner table and asking a random maths or history, or just encouraging them to speak. Tell us about your day. How many parents do and don't do that?
Talking about your day is
tell us about
so important. Just like, so one of the really nice questions that we try to encourage for children at school, because we focus, and a lot of schools do now, focus on values and character values, which is, in the big everything, kindness, resilience. We have all these values, and we teach those as part of everything. So we teach that this is what it looks like to be resilient. This is how you would be resilient. And we really focus on that at the moment, which is fantastic. And I think education's really turned in a great way. And all of those different character values, and us teaching those, hopefully then they will go home and they will start to talk about those sorts of things. And they'll say, we try to encourage parents, and we say to them, rather than how was your day, because they'll just be like, yeah, fine, I had sausages. Like, they never tell you anything today. They're just, because they're kids, that's what they tell. Whereas if you say, tell me about somebody who was kind to you today.
Yeah. Well, it's open questions versus closed questions, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you say, do you have a good day today? That's a closed question.
Yeah.
It's yes, no.
But
what was the favourite part of your day is an open question. There is no yes, no answer to that.
I think that's an age thing as well, though.
Kids are kids.
My daughter, she'll come in and say, I made daisy chains with, I don't know, Rosie, I was doing this, I was doing that, my teacher did this. My daughter will go off for 10 minutes at me, which is great. I love it. But if I ask my son, who's 13, no matter how I ask him, it was all right.
Yeah.
That's it. He's gone. He's gone.
But yeah, we try to ask things like, tell me about something that made you laugh today, or tell me the thing. Like I try to do it with my own little boy. When I go to bed, okay, what was your best part about today?
Yeah.
And it might be when you cook me beans. It might be that's fine, and that's okay. Or it might be when we went on that walk, Mum, and then you talked about the owl, and I can't even remember talking about the owl. Yeah. But to him, he's forgotten about all the other stuff that I thought was fun. Yeah. Because to him, that was just what he wanted.
Yeah, it's so important because your parents are your biggest supporter as well, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, gosh, yeah.
And it's also acknowledging them when they do that. So many parents just do it because they think they have to do it, and none of us are experts. Nobody will ever write a perfect book on parenting.
God, no.
But they think they've done it like it's an exchange. How was your day? Great. Okay, yeah. When they give you that response, I love hearing when you go, wow, that was interesting. The small things. We talk about quantity versus quality, making eye contact with your child and going, oh my goodness, turning your head and really giving them that attention. So they go, wow, because it's how they bounce off it. We talk about mirroring again. They feel acknowledged and they go, I said something interesting. I said something different. See how that happened. And then, sometimes you're obviously Lily and Archie, my children, and Ollie, turn into Lily and saying, that was interesting what I just said. What do you think about that? And just encouraging her to take her own thoughts off in another direction and going, you know what, because nobody had asked her opinion before, or nobody had considered that.
Yeah.
People look at it like an exchange.
And I think going back to kind of my job, my role, so we are, as teachers, loco parentis.
What does that mean, sorry?
Which means that you are the parent when the parent isn't there. So you have, particularly when you're on a residential, obviously you take them away for 3 nights and a sleepover. So you are the parent in that, and you make the decisions of the parent.
Does that get a little bit worrying? I mean,
when I first did it, it's absolutely terrifying.
I'll be bricking it because it's okay with 1 or 2 children, but 30, 40 children.
I think the first time, you have like 60 there.
It's even worse.
I mean, there's like 6 adults, but there's one of you in charge, and then that's been.
What's the ratio then?
Really.
What's the ratio in regards to how many children on a residential? Is it 1 to 10? Is there a magic number?
Depends on the age. So different ages are different numbers. So it's normally, so in Key Stage 2, which is year 3 to 6, it's 1 to 10.
Yeah.
But if you've got perhaps somebody with more needs, then you might need an extra adult or etc. And if they're very young, when you go on a school trip, you need like 1 adult, 2 children, because you need to just hold their hands the entire way around.
Have any schools
every 5 seconds.
Stop doing stuff like that at all? Because it's important to acknowledge things like this. While they're difficult to talk about, there's been lots and lots of cases of horrific things that have happened with children during their development, whether in schools or in their private life or anything like that.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, we have reacted and put in infrastructure to protect vulnerable children who perhaps have a different learning difficulty or don't have a perception that something that's happening to them is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
My only fear is, like when anything gets brought in, like a new health and safety thing gets brought in, it ruins something else. We say ruins. It's designed for somebody that's hurt themselves, like a child. There'll be something that comes in to protect a child.
It creates another barrier somewhere along the line.
Like you've now got to have X number of people there, or you've now got to sign this and sign that, and the parents have got to sign that. And at a certain point, you get to a point where the barrier gets shifted and people go, no, we're just not going to do it. It's just too much of a hassle.
I mean, the risk assessments are huge.
Enormous, I bet.
But we still have great fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you just... you have to just be real, and whilst you have to obviously assess the risk and visit the place yourself and take into account, is that, do I feel comfortable as a person to take these children there?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether that risk assessment says I can do it or not.
Yeah.
If it says I can do it, am I okay with it? If I'm not going to, because it's about you as an adult, and you're the one that's in charge here. And if 4 people are sick or somebody jumps in a river, what are you going to do? Are you happy to do what's on that risk assessment or not? Yeah. And that's a big thing.
We've, as firefighters as well, there's a thin line, so to speak, isn't there? But there's stuff what you would do and what you should do as well. I mean, there's two different things there, isn't there?
I literally went to an incident 2 days ago where a mum and her daughter had broken down because they had an engine malfunction and the oil had basically burst. Mm-hmm. The child had Down syndrome, and it would start horrifically raining. It was this week. If anybody remembers what this week is, it was been raining a hell of a lot. And we made the decision. We made the decision to take them home on the vehicle, on the appliance. Now, there's nothing in the rules that says we should be doing this, and it's happened before, but it's a very grey area, and people worry about it. Yeah. But what Rich says there about, getting back to what do you think is right? What's the right thing to do? Is the vehicle safe? Has it got seat belts? Are they going to be wearing a seat belt? What's the right thing to do? Within the sort of risk-benefit ratio. But a lot of services aren't able to act with common sense.
And that's the magic word, common sense.
Yeah. Like if you saw a child really upset, your instinct might be to hug the child and go, it's okay. And now you can't do anything like that.
Well,
there's a grey area.
I mean,
again,
that's
isn't there?
a huge... there are lots of things that we have to be very, I can't see somebody, I can't drive home tonight and see one of my children put in the back of my car.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that at all. Or contact them on Facebook. Not that I'd ever do that, but there's certain things that are definite no's.
I mean, that's got to be weird as well, because social media wasn't that big when we were non-existent, whereas now.
Yeah, I think when it first got big, it was a problem for the older children, but not so much now. I mean, the guidelines have been kind of reset. But
most children you teach, they won't be on social media yet, will they?
I think you'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah, mate, seriously?
Really?
Oh, all the time. Like, it might not be Facebook, but Snapchat, TikTok, because all those platforms you can still chat.
Yes.
So they there's still a lot of very unkind words coming in.
I was going to say, because with every fun
you got your
chat and photo and video that comes, there comes another threat to the child. There comes another way in for those with bad motives.
Yeah, online safety is a huge part of our curriculum now.
Yeah, grooming and horrible things like this. And you're like, it's no longer my child goes out and I need to see who they're talking to on the park. They've got this thing in their hand where they access the entire world.
Yeah, it's scary.
How do I defend against that? And for me, it's just education. It's talking to your child about things and having a closer relationship.
I'm not saying this because I'm a teacher.
It's out for education.
This is a quote from somebody, I don't know who, but education is the most powerful thing you can use to change the world. And somebody said that, I don't know who, but it's so true. You educate, you teach somebody something, then they will know. Yeah, there's many risks. Yeah. And gosh, if children don't, it's like for example, teaching. I've been teaching sex education for a long time now, and that's a particular topic where people go, I don't want to do that. That's a bit scary.
And it's come back and forth in different ways because some people, this is too graphic. Well, this is not enough.
Yeah, and at the minute,
child needs to know that.
Obviously, it's high in the news because of that situation. Yeah. And, we're revising our curriculum as a school as well. But in that particular incident, if anybody ever talks to you, if a child says something to you, then you use the scientific term for that so that they know what that is, and they know, no, darling, that's a part of your body. We don't get our willy out and play with it in Tesco. The reason we don't do that is because that's a private area of your body. You say that, not just put it away. You teach them and say, this is why we don't walk around with our pants down.
I've had it with Lily.
It's not right.
Because
kids do it until they know not to, because they don't understand.
She has a shower and then her bedroom's down the hallway. Now, when she was up to the age of 3 or whatever, she just started walking. She'd waddle around with a bum out, as all children tend to do.
Yeah,
and
my children love being naked, as you know.
Absolutely. But then as her older brothers get a little bit older and they get more aware of women's bodies, and as Lily gets a little body, you take her to the side and say, sweetheart, you know how mummy's body looks? When mummy comes out of the shower, she puts her towel on. She does this because sometimes we have the curtains open and sometimes this, and your body your hand is not the same as your X and as your Y. But the fact that I'm not even comfortable to say that on a podcast, we say willy, it feels fine. But if I were to say vagina, it almost feels wrong. And I think that's a very nature-nurture thing. Yeah. Because somebody goes, oh, you're just a prude. But somebody goes, no, God, I couldn't imagine saying that word to my daughter or my son. Mm-hmm. But it's
and the only reason I feel confident doing that is because I've taught it for a long time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have.
But what age are we teaching them now? Then what's the latest?
We're teaching scientific. It's very school specific. Yeah. It's become statutory that you must teach it across primary school, and there are certain things by the end of year 6 you should teach.
So you can teach this
but you can teach it just in year 6 if you want to.
I mean, can you teach this like 4+ year 1, year 2?
Yeah. So in our school, that's what we do, but we're revising kind of exactly what we teach.
Yeah, of course you build it up.
But if you don't get there quick enough,
we go from the NSPCC. The NSPCC published a great scheme called PANTS, which is about keeping yourself safe, your private area safe, basically.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, year 1, you're not going to be teaching them sex education, are you? But you can teach them how to look after themselves and
how to clean yourself and stuff like that.
But it's not really that. We go into swimming baths, and what do we wear? We wear shorts, boys. Why do we do that? Because we cover this area.
Yeah.
Who can touch that area? Mummy might need to look at it. Daddy might need to look at it. If it's not very well, you will wash it. A doctor. That's it.
Yeah, I think
that's what we teach.
I think it's brilliant because we always say to our kids. I mean, I've got a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 8-year-old. People's probably listen to this saying, "No, Dad's got the ages wrong again." But I've got 3 girls, and it's always pieces are private. That's our little saying.
Privates are private. That's what NSPCC stands for.
It's the first time they ask you as well,
because they'll run around naked all day if they wanted to.
Yeah, of course. The kids.
Right, girls, pieces are private. Because we've got an older brother in the house as well, like you just mentioned. But I think that's good. That should be taught to the kids.
I remember the first time Lily, because when we were talking about covering up areas of our body, and Lily would come into the bedroom with my wife Claire, and they'd dry off after the shower. And Lily, for the first time she ever said it to me, she came out and went, "Daddy, have you seen Mummy's booby masks?" Claire says, "What's that, sweetheart?" She's got booby masks, and I was like, "What's that?" And I said to Claire, I'm looking at her, she's like, "My bra." And they'd obviously the first time Lily had acknowledged my chest is flat. I look like this, and Mummy, you look different because you've got lumps there. So these are my boobies,
and that's
this
how
is
they
the
learn.
Mask. Yeah.
Whereas if you just say, shush, stop talking
about that. Don't talk about that. It's rude. And some parents feel so uncomfortable. And again, this is where adults they're just big kids. If they're dependent on their interactions, their sexuality, their comfort with their own sexuality will exactly impact and reflect what their children feel comfortable about.
Absolutely, and I think that's a thing that I guess most concerned about now, really. I think parents, again, I think that everyone's doing a brilliant job in such a crazy situation, but I think it's very difficult to teach all of those things that we would normally be doing in the classroom, and some people are able and have the capacity to do that very well at home, and others that's a real struggle for. and it's a big chunk that that they're missing, really. So.
It's enormous. It surprises me how much it's played on my mind as we've seen different things in the news about when it's done wrong. Because you were saying about how early, Rich, that it comes in, but if you don't get in there early enough, they're going to learn it from somewhere else. Their access to television, YouTube, and things are so graphic.
They learn it wrong as well.
That's what I mean. If you don't get in there in that way, it's so graphic what they can have access to.
But you put things into levels, so to speak, don't you? I mean, at that age, you're going to be learning like level 1, so to speak.
It's age of
anatomy.
Yeah,
of course, and it's like martial arts a little bit.
Yeah.
So what we say is like age and stage appropriate, basically.
Yeah. There's a lot you can learn.
And the stage is important because sometimes you say, okay, we'll be teaching the foundations year 1 this, but actually this cohort.
I think a lot of parents think when you say you're going to do sex education at year 1, they think you're going to be teaching them intercourse, basically.
Yeah.
Or you're going to show them how to put a condom on.
Straight away, like,
and you're like,
oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
I remember that lesson in about year 6, year 7. We'll go into that another time.
But we spoke briefly there about some of the graphic things that children are exposed to these days, and we find it in the fire service. So we would go into schools, and you've probably had, I've been to your school, in fact, spoke to the children about road safety and things like that. And you used to be able to tell a story about somebody losing their life or a horrific injury, but now
you have to sugarcoat it.
You have to sugarcoat it, but B, you lose the shock factor because children have access to such graphic things. You used to be able to show a PowerPoint to a year 7 of somebody that had a car accident and perhaps even what had happened to them physically. They'd been hospitalised, or maybe even a photo of something medium graphic. But now you can go onto YouTube and see somebody get shot in the head, and it's accessible to almost everybody.
Yeah.
And with the violent side of it comes that sexual side as well. Is there much education? Because I haven't seen it with Lily. I know there's some been done with my older children. What's the education that goes on with IT? So you've got a member of your ICT team there. With technology playing such a vital role, do you teach that formally to children about how to navigate the internet and what's appropriate to them?
So we educate children and parents. We try our best to reach out to as much of the school community as we can, because we can educate the children. But actually, it's very easy to. Oh, I've watched actually a good video that I was supposed to, but now. Watch this next. This awful video.
And that's the way it's built.
YouTube is.
Yeah, and that happened. I can't remember what it was. I'm sure you'll be able to say.
It's very easy to get onto something bad.
There was something on YouTube not so long ago. There was like this doll that popped up. Does anyone remember that? Was it?
No, I don't know.
The really petrifying doll.
Yeah, real petrifying doll. There was a YouTube thing going around at the time. The kids are watching all these YouTube videos, having a good time. And then all of a sudden, this doll would pop up, and I think it was telling you to. Something silly like hurt your parents.
I was about to say, there was a little
hidden
thing
message.
About children that started harming themselves and harming other people. And that sort of gets into the mental health side with children as well. We spoke briefly about anxiety and how mental health is quite new for children. With that, and I see it more in secondary school and stuff like that, the self-harming side of things. Do you see a lot of that, or is there much resources applied to that? Not necessarily your personal experiences, but what has changed in terms of educating teachers about how to help children?
Or how to identify the problem.
Yeah, because that's a really difficult thing to talk to somebody about.
Yeah, so we have training yearly, sometimes more often than that, to help us to prepare us to identify the signs and things that we may see. Again, it's a may because it's very different for every child, but noticing, and that goes back to that pastoral relationship that I was explaining. That's first and foremost the most important thing, because if you don't have that, they're not going to feel comfortable to talk to you about anything. They're not going to open up about anything, and you're not going to notice those small things. And often they are small things that build up to a greater picture. Again, we're very lucky in school having a team that is able to support that. If we see a child that's particularly struggling, we can ask for support and say, they need a bit of one-on-one time that. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't give. We have, 29 others. So we are as equipped as we possibly could be as a teaching profession, but it's difficult, but that relationship really helps, and noticing when children, are late all the time or this or that. And there's various different factors to it. It's very intense and complex. But
so on a lighter note, talking about being nice and interactive with the kids, my children have just been doing these platforms. They've been doing lessons and stuff, but you guys have been doing something a little bit different. So we spoke a little about your dancing history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I felt enormously proud when you sent me, you said, I've done this thing for the kids, because at your school, this is really, really unique. I want to touch this one quickly as well. You guys come out into the playground in the morning and get the what do you call it? Morning wake up shake up or something like that, isn't it?
So it's called
the feel good.
It's called Wake Up Shake Up. Yeah, at the school, it was a thing a few years back. It was a kind of thing we did, and then we kind of carried on doing it. Basically, it's like walking into Butlins for about 20 minutes.
Which is awesome. Okay. I've never seen it.
Every Thursday morning.
Do you know what, Pete? I've not seen it. Can you show us?
It's basically, I mean, I'm not going to show you, but it's basically like, good morning, get your dancing shoes on, and then we do like a really embarrassing dance routine.
So the kids are all walking around
clapping,
cheering.
And the kids, I mean, not all of them,
I bet they feel good, though.
Whoever wants to join in, it's 10 minutes before school starts, once a week. Whoever wants to join in, then they do, and then they go off to their classrooms. So.
That must put them in a real good mood, though, as well.
Yeah, I mean...
So is that something that you've recently adapted at school, or is it something that they've always done?
No, so we've been doing it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. On and off. The last year or so, we've been doing it every week. That's kind of ramped up. We used to do it at special occasions and things like that, like end of term, things like that.
I mean, I know every school is different, but I think that's, along with sports as well, I think that's something that should come across the whole board.
Yeah.
Some
before
schools
you
do
start
it.
school, because it's a big... When we go to like public speaking events and stuff like that, the first thing they do, they get you up, they get you singing, they get you dancing, they get you chanting. It just fills you with energy.
It changes
your
state.
Start the day.
It changes your energy. You know, you've just come from home and now you're changing gears. And how am I going to enter this environment? How am I going to enter this state of learning?
I mean, we're fortunate. We just had a fantastic track built on our field. So we've got the Daily Mile at school now as well. So
that's incredible.
We're very lucky. And other schools have great resources too.
All these things aren't mandatory though. And that's what I love. And I know that's why you've stayed at the school you're currently at.
Yeah, I love it.
Because I know if we saw a couple of the children, a couple of teachers at the schools that my children have been to, they'd be like, I'm absolutely not doing that. There's a certain amount of self-confidence and things to do that. And especially, like I was referring to when I first asked the question, is these YouTube dance videos. So again, these aren't mandatory. You guys have sort of taken it upon yourselves to really reach across that sort of internet, social media barrier. And you've been doing some dances for the children. How did that come about?
Just kind of, we're talking to one of my colleagues who's also a good friend of mine, and we were talking one evening when I'd had a glass of wine and thought, Miss Wake Up Shake Up, yeah. Should we just do it online? Yeah. And then, you forget about it. And then 2 days later, I sent her a message and I was like, should we do that then? And she was like, yeah, all right. And then we just did it. And the plan was to do it together and kind of try to somehow sync the videos, but neither of us were clever and ICT enough to be able to do that, because obviously we're now in homes. So we just recorded ourselves. There's 3 of us. Now it's just me, but there were 3 of us, and obviously now they're teaching. And we just pick a song. Some of them we have dance routines already pre-prepared for.
I was going to say, because it's not just like you jumped into it.
Oh, it's not. It's like a
your dance routine
thing.
background. I was like, I'm going to do this. Then I'll step to the left. I'll do this with my arm. And then I'll do that. And then I'll do that.
There's some practice.
There's a lot of plans that went into this.
And then you record it, and then you send it out. So we have a YouTube channel at school. You send it out to the children, and then they.
And how's it been received?
And then, like 2 hours later, you realise 200 people have viewed it, and you think,
yes.
Oh, I wish I'd brushed my hair a little more.
But it's so authentic, isn't it? We spoke before we came on air.
It's authentic.
About being authentic, and it's fantastic, isn't it? And you've got lots of different tracks that are familiar with the kids.
This week we're doing Witches and Wizards now, because it's all kind of changed, and most of the teachers are back in school now.
Yeah.
And there's just me and another teacher kind of providing it for the children that aren't, and we're doing Witches and Wizards. So he did a dance dressed as a wizard on Monday with a broomstick on his head, kind of like doing stuff with a broomstick, like pretending it was weights.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, he'll kill me for saying that. And then yesterday, I did a dance routine to the Ghostbusters, obviously.
Of course. Who
Who
are you going to call?
I've had actually quite a few messages.
And you get a lot of hits, don't you? There's a lot of people watch them.
You're going to have to send us some links to these, because I'm sure
we'll
people want to see some of these.
We got a lot of views, yeah.
We'll learn to do ours as well, Rich, because that's what we're doing next, obviously.
I'm not sure they're up there with like Strictly, but
they're
a giggle.
You never know.
Neither's Joe Wicks.
You never know.
Do you know what I mean? So Joe Wicks has been a fantastic resource for a lot of people.
Amazing.
Absolutely incredible. And what I love most about the way he communicates his stuff is he knows it's not perfect. He makes the odd mistake. I mean, he's had a hand injury, hasn't he? He's injured his wrist for a very long time. Didn't stop him doing it. And he's acknowledged that it's not about being an athlete. It's not about being the biggest, fittest, fastest. This is not a competition. It's about people collectively coming together and feeling that connection. That's why he's obviously been doing them live. These aren't all pre-recorded stuff. It's been enormous that he's managed to reach so many people.
It's also normal people tend to interact better with normal people. So like we always talk about marketing and stuff. Like, I come from a fitness background, so if you put on a really toned man and woman on the front of the poster, it's not going to really attract the people that may be feeling a little bit overweight, and really, it's not going to attract the right people because it's a different.
Well,
there's something called the threshold of belief as well, and this is where people will engage with something if they believe it's realistic,
believe it's
achievable. Yeah. So if you say to somebody, "I will get you an 8-pack in 6 weeks," and they look at themselves and they're 3 stone overweight, though, I'm never going to achieve that.
I'm still waiting.
And equally, when they look at this godlike person on the screen that's clearly been training for 30 years at 2% body fat, it doesn't become accessible. Rich with the plan, just stick to the plan, brother. But Joe Wicks, lovely guy. He's not in the best shape. Do you know what I mean? He's fit and healthy, but he's not. He's not the most ripped person.
He's got great rapport.
Why it's fantastic rapport.
Yeah, he's really good.
There's lots of people that have lots more information that can't communicate.
He's got a child, which really.
Yeah, and he uses that child as well, doesn't he? Now he's a dad. He's part of his video.
And he actually inspired me a little bit.
It's part of his videos.
Yeah, so like we send a video out to the kids every Monday with just like us teachers saying, "Hey guys, this is wine at the weekend, bit rainy on it," type thing.
Exactly.
Like, come on, you got it this week. It's going to be really exciting. Woo! And like that. And now we kind of include like our dogs in it and like fun stuff. And they like it. It's nice.
Because it's another thing, isn't it, for people to connect with you. You're no longer just that teacher. They've really, really got to know you. Yeah. I think they'll come back with much stronger relationships than they ever did before. And now you've obviously recorded a podcast.
They're going to come back and, spend a very little to no time with their current teacher is another challenge to it. And something that I, feel quite sad about. I know a lot of people do, and children, that's a hard thing because in September, it's very likely that they'll go straight into their new teacher because the year continues. And life continues, it goes on, doesn't it? But kids are resilient. I mean, a book I read actually recently, it was called, you'd like it, When the Adults Change, Everything Changes. And it's all about behaviour. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Right, I don't know whether the schools will do something a little bit different. So what year are you currently teaching, sorry?
Year 4.
Year 4, I didn't know, because of this lockdown, well, some schools may take the kids back and just switch into a year 5 teacher, so they've got the same kids.
It's very difficult. I mean, if you're able to, great, but obviously there are then teachers in year 6 who would then have to teach 4-year-olds, which is quite a significant jump from an 11 to 4-year-old. So ideally, I mean, that would be a fantastic solution.
My general school, they're all going to be tackling it slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think we should have really thought about our academic year and the government. I mean, this is a government decision, not us as schools. The government should have said, right, wow, this is massive. You go back to your old teacher, and then we have a new academic year, and it starts in January.
Yeah,
and that's it. Now it's changed forever.
Yeah,
bam.
Everybody just drops back one, and that's just the way.
Yeah, it is. And there's only 3 months of foundation of nursery children. They're gonna lose 3 months there, but they'll keep up. Their nurseries will sort them out.
And we've said it a few times.
And realistically, that's probably the best solution. I mean,
it's too late to say that now, but that would be fantastic.
That's basically common sense, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Well, we said let's bring a bit of common sense into the whole situation.
Yeah.
The thing about common sense is not always commonplace. That's always a unique.
And I think
we don't.
No one knows what's going to be like. Do they? Things change weekly, daily.
Yes.
I mean, there was a briefing today. Actually, I hadn't actually listened to it, but I know things have changed again today, probably. So.
Now, you've said a few times about children's resilience and how resilient they can be, but you've also said that you build it into some of your teaching styles and also directly build content around it for the children. Now, I think resilience is enormous. I talk to a lot of my clients about callousing the mind and how we grow through these challenges. How do you communicate that to a child? What forms part of your resilience teaching methods, if we will?
We reward children based on their character values, not based on their learning outcome.
Okay.
So I mean, if they'd done like a beautiful piece of art with it, we'd say, "Whoa, yeah, wicked." Obviously, they'd still get that praise, obviously.
Yeah. So it's more like if they hold a door open.
But if they're wow, mate, excellent kindness. Go and give yourself 2 Dojo points. Yeah. Wow. I mean, Dojo's our system, but like stars, whatever you are.
Yeah.
But wow, thanks so much. I just saw you pick up that litter.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Go on, again, kindness that was, but. Wow, I was watching you earlier and I couldn't get to you, could I? You've had your hand up for 10 minutes. So sorry, mate. I had a few people to talk to. Great determination. Go and get yourself to,
Yeah, we should teach them to care as well. And ultimately, it's building a bit better world because these are our future, aren't they? These children.
Oh, I can see. I saw Archie was crying then, but I was with somebody else who'd hurt themselves. Thanks, mate. I saw you went and sat with them. That's so kind.
Which is the balance of acknowledgement again there as well. Now you said about how hard they try with something and don't necessarily reward you actually acknowledge the outcome.
Acknowledge outcome, but reward effort.
I was going to say it's all about that effort-based reward, isn't it? Because I remember reading a few teaching studies where they speak about they give all the children exactly the same test to do. Now, some of them they'll acknowledge getting what the result they got. So if somebody gets 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, they focus on that and say, you got 9 out of 10, fantastic. And they would identify the child as, you're really intelligent, fantastic, you're a really smart child, you've done really well, you're a genius, they might say to some children. Whereas the other group, they would focus on the effort. Wow, you stuck at that for a long time, you've really, really done well there, well done for trying so hard. They then gave all the children a second test, and they gave them the option of knowing the result or not. Now, the group that was rewarded for all of their outcome focused heavily on what the reward was, whereas the other group were less interested in it. And then they offered them a third choice, which was, we're now going to give you a test that's harder than the one you've already done, and see how long they worked at it for. And it showed that the children who were effort-based reward worked for twice as long as the results outcome rewarded ones, because they had that ability to persevere with something for longer, irrespective of the outcome. Yeah. And as a result of it, they were automatically more successful with it anyway. Yeah. So I love the fact that we're now focusing more on that effort-based reward, because if you focus on the outcome all the time, children, as it was in that example there, they steer away from something that may be too challenging. Because if they do something too challenging and they get it wrong, it is then going to dispel the illusion or dispel their identity that I am a genius, I am a special child, I am an achiever. Whereas if we build a generation of people that are effort-based, that are all about the journey and will persevere, because no matter how intelligent you are, you're always going to face a challenge that is too much for you at that moment in your time, where you may need to go away and seek more resources, seek more support. Yeah. But if you're in love and if you're focused on the effort side of it, you're going to persevere. You're going to reach out for that help. You're going to have another go. And you yourself, myself, Rich, anybody that's had to overcome a challenge to go for a larger goal will know that failure is always part of the process. Yeah. It's always going to be part of the process. It's part of the learning journey, and no one's going to come in and get it right first time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Do you think it will change? Do you think it will change for the better, or do you think it's just going to go back to how things have, or is it going to be more of a balance? Like, this has worked great, we're definitely going to use this.
I mean, I sign not out of exhaustion. I mean, I am very exhausted, but
you did cycle in today.
Yeah, to be fair, I did cycle. Yeah, I had a long day. I got up at 5 as well today. Emily was up early.
Good.
It's been a long day.
Mental resilience.
No, it wasn't by choice. But I don't know. There are many things I think, but I'm not sure which way it will go.
I think it's finding that balance now. I think as teachers, you go back to exactly what you did before. Yeah. But this virtual training has also been working well as well. So I think this might be a way for how we now do homework, maybe. Yeah.
I mean,
like pre-record.
Yeah, I mean, it's opened up many doors. It's even little things like, you're on a course today, so you can't attend the staff meeting. Well, you could, couldn't you? You could just
ways of working have changed tremendously.
Like as an adult, as our relationship with children, if a child has to be off school for a long time for illness or something, I mean, well,
got a virtual platform.
We've got a virtual platform. Yeah. Like, that's excellent.
Because that wasn't there before, I'd imagine.
No, I mean, we had it, but it wasn't used like this. Like, it was more of a, during our ICT lesson, let's have a look at this. Like, it was never something that people went on at home. So it's used very differently and very effectively now. And we've got, a particular member of staff who worked exceptionally hard to set it all up for us.
But that's because they had to as well, because that's the beauty of it. I forget who the quote was from, but they always said, invention or creation, necessity is the father of creation or invention. I mean, when you have to do it, when you have to be resourceful, you'd be astonished what you can come up with. And because we've been placed in this situation with no choice, we've all had to adapt, and we will all benefit, as Richard rightly said, and as you're explaining, we're going to benefit from this far beyond when this is but a memory.
Yeah, I mean, there's things I hope come out of it. I don't know what September will hold. Nobody does, and if things don't change in terms of social distancing, we won't be able to have 30 children in a classroom. That's a fact.
That's one on to another question actually. How are the classrooms now changing? So kids are starting to go back to school now, or how does that affect the classroom?
So currently in our school and in many schools, they're welcoming back some of the children, so some of the year groups, but capping each bubble, so they're in bubbles, at 15 children. If that's, at our school, we can fit that in our classroom with a bit of room.
How do you choose which children are allowed? Because some parents may be thinking, why is my kid not allowed to come back?
No, so we have cohorts of 30. So at the minute, our entire school is full of 3 year groups and key workers because the 30 children are mixed up. So some
I was about to say teachers' favourites then, but of course it's not that.
No.
How did they choose the years though? How did they know which years were the priority?
Foundation stage 1 and 6 are the ones that have been welcomed back first by the government, because
I think it's more them starting school and leaving school, isn't it?
So the foundations of learning and the fact that they are about to approach secondary school, so you're finishing off.
Okay.
How do you think the children are going to find it when they come back? So if it's going to be one seat, empty seat, one seat, how are we going to control the children want to sit near each other? I mean, I heard the other day, I may be wrong, and I'm sure this is different in all schools, a child need their shoelaces doing up, but the teacher couldn't do the shoelaces up through touching them. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I've heard. But then surely that's going to open up something else then in regards to the kids going to fall over.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I think you have to manage what's your expectation is, what your job role is, and what you're personally comfortable with. And if you're particularly anxious, that's okay. And maybe this job for you at the moment is too much, and you need to be, because as primary school teachers, you are a people person. You know, you're there for the kids, you know, and people, and it's a tactile thing. You're there, you're sat right next to them, marking their work and helping them, and don't worry, sweetie pie, I'll help you. So to take away all those things is very alien, and is, you know, there's definitely ways that there's some definite challenges, but generally the children have been absolutely fantastic, and I think going forwards, I like to think that the emphasis that we've placed on well-being will continue, that we use the online platform effectively in some way to supplement what we're doing, or, you know, if we have to still have reduced numbers, that we're able to do that effectively and they don't miss out as much. I hope that. But I mean, there's massive questions, things like, you know, like an assembly is a mass gathering, you know, and
it's a big part of school as well, assemblies, you know it's a great opportunity to acknowledge children, and also a communication tool.
It's a discipline. It's a you know, we're walking into, it's not church, but we walk in quietly, we sit down nicely, we have respect for, it's a thing, isn't it? And you know, that's a mass gathering of 300 people. You know, that's a long way off, and it's going to change. You know, PE is a huge area at the minute where
I imagine some schools will do an online assembly though.
They're already being done.
There
was actually one done
schools,
today,
aren't you? So
by Princess Kate did one today online about kindness. It was very good. Yeah, I watched it.
I mean, there's certainly pros and cons, isn't there, with all of this?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we've learned a great deal, and hopefully we have to take some of it forward. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of families will also become a lot stronger from this. You know, I saw a wonderful video the other day about in 15, 20 years' time, we'll look back at this and all of the COVID babies that were created. You know, all the families that have gotten closer. All of the children that never saw their dads very regularly, and they've spent the last 2 months with them non-stop. Yeah. Families that never perhaps sat together. They never spent time outside together. They never got time to work on their garden together. I think the bonds that have been formed during this period of time will be very, very rich, and will have gone far deeper than people realise.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're forced into something, and I think you grow within it, don't you?
Well, Lisa, sis, thank you very much for coming in, because homeschooling is a huge part that perhaps hasn't been given the attention it deserved. We've all worried about businesses and income, which are very important, but homeschooling has been a massive part of my life. I know it has yourself as well, Rich. So we really appreciate you coming in and shedding a little bit of light for anybody that's been worried about, have they been doing it right, have they been doing it wrong. It's lovely to hear from the horse's mouth, if you will, that you're just about doing your best, using the resources that are there, and that support is always on the other end.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming and sharing time with us.
It's been a pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for coming in.
And we'll see you soon. There we go.
Quite enjoyed that.
It's awesome. Thanks for checking out the Firefighters Podcast this week. Make sure you check out the YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram pages, keeping yourself up to date with the latest podcast as it comes out. We'll see you guys soon.